All right. Haha. Here we are. Perry Gladstone.
And Daniel Jordi.
Awesome. Dang. Here we are together. Yay. We're here to talk about what we're curious about in our professional and our personal lives.
I love that. And the
Yeah.
topic today is connecting with powerful people.
Mm. Like you.
And you. Yeah.
See that? Yeah. Okay. Cheesy part's over now.
Okay. That's really a topic. It's something that's been on my mind forever. It's something that I've always been passionate about because I very much do believe that with the right people in your corner, there's nothing that is impossible to accomplish or become.
hmm I concur, and I think about that in a bunch of different contexts. I mean, the obvious one is you sort of play to the level of the people
Hmm.
that you surround yourself with. And this is not news. I mean, Napoleon Hill wrote about this in his 1940s book, Think and Grow Rich, which was like the beginning of a lot of this positive psychology, you know, what do I want to say? Theory of abundance and a bunch of other things, and manifesting what you believe in. But
Hmm.
which he broaches there, uh, in that book way back then. But the simple premise is, what you surround yourself with, both with people and with the energy, affects the outcome.
Hmm.
But to your point, specifically the people. And I heard an interview with Tim Ferriss just the other day where he was saying exactly the same thing. I mean, something to the effect of, he moved to Silicon Valley because that's where those people are and that's who he wants to be surrounded with.
Yeah, it's a
So,
really good point. It's I mean, I've made that experience so many times in my life, especially when I started my business. I was surrounded by the very narrow-minded people from
mm,
my sort of even previous life, actually. It's sort of a previous life. And in order to grow as a person, I had to surround myself with people who were the kind of people who not just achieve the kind of things that I wanted to achieve, but also who are the kind of people I wanted to become. And that's what I gradually did, and it was an amazing journey.
hmm yeah,
There's I remember when I got introduced to you, Perry, from Jason,
yeah.
our friend. He said something. He's in the introduction. He said you gotta get to know Perry. He's the master of masterminds. Tell me a little bit more about that because I just realized I don't know too much about what you do with masterminds and how you got involved in this whole topic.
Okay. Um, the mastermind thing it really was an organic development for me. And I got it from the same place. I mean, it's funny that you make that connection without maybe even realizing it. But I first learned about the concept of mastermind and at least the term about it from that Napoleon Hill book. So, and the idea really is that it's a pure mentorship exercise where you're surrounding yourself by people whom have something to offer you in a positive way, whether it's experience or resources or knowledge or assets or whatever that is. And so the idea is that you create a group, a mastermind group of people who are able to help you elevate your own game. Now, there's different forms of it. There's mastermind groups where someone creates all the content, and you just show up and absorb it all. But really, to me, that's more of a seminar.
Mm-hmm.
A true mastermind, in my opinion, is a gathering of people who are there to help mentor each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to have acquired the skills over my career to be very good at facilitating this. But not just being a good facilitator, the piece of it that's most important to me is actually the curation. And I understand I'm digressing a fair bit here, but I think it's important to answer. I studied film and got into the film business. I apprenticed as a director, and I had the opportunity to make some different projects. I mean, commercials, music videos, all different kinds of stuff. And what I learned from that is that choosing the right people and the right script is more important than the actual direction itself.
Mm.
Now, some people may disagree with me, but I felt like my job as a director if there was one job that mattered more than anything else, it was to choose the right cast. Because when you have the right dynamic, then you're going to get some kind of magic. And yes, in the day, on the day, in the moment, it's my job to sort of eke it out or pull it out or push and pull and prod to make that happen. But if you don't have the right people in the first place, forget about it. And so I see the mastermind group very much the same way. And the word I would use for that is to curate, or curation. So I think one of the reasons that Jason said what he said, I don't want to put any words in his mouth, is because from my point of view, what I'm good at is putting the right people together. There's lots of people in the world who are great at facilitating. But if you don't have the right group in the first place, so what? So that's how I see it. And the mastermind came about really because I needed a group for myself. And so I sought out people that I wanted to play with, people whose game was higher than mine, people who I thought I would really benefit from. And I hoped that I could bring enough to the table that it would benefit them as well. And I created my first group about 6 years ago, so really not that long in terms of life. And it's still running. That my personal mastermind group is still going with almost everyone's the same. It's incredible.
Wow.
And then from there, I've continued the practice. So now I build mastermind groups that I actually run. So I put people together and I get them going and I facilitate them. I don't do too many of them because I think it's important for me not to be distracted. I need to be able to show up 100%. But I also help people form mastermind groups and then hand them off. So there's some of that too.
Okay.
Did I explain it?
Yeah, now I get the master of mastermind terms. Now I get it.
Yeah. Again, there's different people doing different things. I mean, I know of masterminds where, and I've been invited to some of these, where people are paying exorbitant amounts of money, anywhere from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month to be in that circle, that inner circle. And certainly that speaks to this idea of connecting with powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it at any level. And if you choose wisely, they work great.
Yeah, absolutely agree. There's something interesting about the term curator. That's something, I learned that word a couple of months ago. I didn't know about that word till a couple of months ago. And one of the things I realized is that that's actually one of the things that I'm really good at as well. Because, one of my major parts, of the biggest part of my work, is connecting people. It's it's not just part of what I do; it's part of who I am. And there's the investors that I help entrepreneurs connect with, for example, influential people in their market and things like that. And one of the things I realized is the connection aspect can only be built on the curation aspect, or on that top, because I'm the curator. Whatever I put out there, like what we do right now, and everything else on my blog, my videos, my webinars, and everything when I speak and talk to other people, everything that I put out there, and the people I attract, these are essentially the people that I curate into my network. And based on that curation part, I then get to make the right connections. But if I initially attract the wrong people, the connection aspect is never going to happen. So that's just something that came up with when you mentioned that curator.
Absolutely. I've always said that I collect people. The truth is, I collect experiences, and through those experiences, I collect people. And the experiences that I collect are the ones that I pursue, the ones that I'm curious about, and the stuff that I want to experience. And then via that, I meet people who are like-minded, and I meet people that I want to collect, and some that I don't. And yes, from there, you have the opportunity to connect. And I think it comes naturally to some people, and others don't have that sort of natural inclination, and that's obviously fine.
Yeah, absolutely agree. About today's topic, connecting with powerful people. If somebody would walk up to you and say, "Perry, I need your help. How can I connect with some powerful people?" What would you say to them?
I would say to them, what are you trying to achieve? Which is another way of saying why. Because connecting with powerful people for the sake of power is a waste of time and something I don't want to be a part of. connecting with powerful people because you have an ask, but you don't have anything to bring to the table, is something I don't want to be associated with either. I know you can appreciate this, Daniel, that when you connect somebody, that reflects on you. And this isn't, yes, it's selfish, absolutely, but it's also protecting the connection that you've made. And it's not just protecting your credibility with them, it's also respecting and honoring the relationship in the first place. So there's a vetting process that has to take place. If I'm connecting two people that I've already collected that I already believe in, then it's an easy deal. But if someone comes up to me and asks that question, I'll engage with the conversation, but right out of the gate, I'm going to be cautious because I already think this person's at it for the wrong reason.
I so much connect with that. My whole work since the day I started my business has always been about connections. And it's been about a million different kinds of people. And, I've connected, so many different people from so many different worlds. And I initially started out with connecting or helping executives connect with decision makers to move into a more fulfilling career. Okay. Now, I stopped doing that because exactly of that reason. Because most of the people I attracted were doing it I'm not saying for the wrong reasons, but for very selfish reasons. There was no greater good in the whole thing. And that's why I work with entrepreneurs that I call change makers now, because if I get to connect or help a change-making entrepreneur connect with an impact investor, there's a huge greater good in that. Yeah. And it's no longer about, I connect with you because I need money. Yes, that's one aspect of it, but I'm also connecting with you because I want your personality and because I believe we are a good match, we're a good fit. So I came up with this concept today. I don't have any name for it right now, but let's just call it the connection circle. And you probably heard from Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle.
Yeah, start with why.
Exactly, start with why. And in the middle is the why, and then the how, and then the what. And one of the things I realized after I looked at that circle is that's exactly the same framework. It's just in a different context. So what I came up with in the middle of the why part is a shared set of values, a similar vision for the future, and what I call complementary superpowers. And I take this in the concept of entrepreneurs connecting with investors. So change-making entrepreneurs connecting with impact investors. And when the question comes up, why do we connect? Why should we connect? Why should this work? Why is this going to work? Well, it's exactly because of these three reasons. And for no other reason. It's just exactly because of that. Because we share a similar set of values, we have a similar vision for the future, and we complement each other with whatever we bring to the table. And if we build it based on that, there's a huge chance that this relationship is going to be successful. And then from that point, we can then expand. And then in the how part, essentially, there's three strategies. And the first one is a referral strategy, then an introduction strategy, and an outreach strategy. And that's just the how are we going to get to know these people. And it's just it's the core strategies. And then at the outer part of the what, there's three components, which is being curious, being generous, and sharing your vision. Because if people ask, so what am I going to say once I connect with the investor? That's exactly it. Every single conversation is going to be about these three key things. Because if you're curious, if you're generous, and if you keep sharing your vision, things are showing up, things are falling in place. And I've made that experience 100,000 times, over the past years. And I've seen it so many times happen with my clients and all the people I worked with. It's so powerful, and it seems so simple, but it's so powerful.
I love what you're describing, and I see the circle in my mind, and I see the process that you've outlined in, as a very easy to follow method, and it makes me think there's a lot of us that really need a tool like that, or at least at certain times, where you can say, okay, maybe I'm stuck, and you need a reminder. You need to understand how to get started, or where along the way you got off track. And this could be a very powerful tool in that way. And I really do like tools like this, and I'm not sure if I have a predisposition for it, but something about it, you're going to hate me for this, makes me want to not use them. As soon as someone presents to me the tool, I love this. I love this idea, and I love what Simon did, and I love all of these ideas where it's like, see how clear this is? You know, it all makes perfect sense. And then when someone shows me the tool, I'm like, yeah, fuck, I'm not going to use it though. And I think that resistance for me, and this is not to shoot you down in any way.
No, it's okay.
Comes up because I want it to be natural. I want it to flow in such a way that I don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about that to me is that, you know, like if you practice and you practice and you practice, you adopt it and it becomes natural and you don't think about it anymore. But I also worry, and my mom and me, I worry that somehow or another the use of tools too religiously or systematically takes away from some of the opportunity that's there to connect with people in a very real and meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to strike a balance there.
Mm-hmm. I totally get what you're saying. You know, that's what I was thinking about when I created this framework today. You know,
So sorry to interrupt, but this is really coming from the way you engage with people in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. It's when it comes to the strategic part, essentially, the core aspect of it is the why and the what. So it's the values, the vision, and the superpowers, and it's the being curious, generous, and sharing your vision. The strategies can always be adjusted. You know, sometimes, I mean, I don't even think about having a strategy to reach out. You know, I just connect with people. But I created it because a lot of the people I work with, they're not that natural. You know, they don't have that, you know, easy way. Just they don't just make connections. You know, I get to know, I don't know, 5 to 10 new people a week. And it's just because I naturally connect. It's just what I'm really good at. But essentially, these pieces, you know, the why and the what part, they're actually there to give the people a tool to make the connections as naturally as possible. Because many times it's really hard to make natural connections if you're not a natural connector. But even for me, you know, if I, you know, especially when the limiting stories and limiting beliefs kicking, like, you know, this person's way is too powerful to connect with and things like that. Whenever these kinds of things kick in, I love having a very, very simple tool at hand where I can just say, am I making this conversation, this connection about curiosity, generosity, and sharing my vision? And if that's all I'm doing, it's going to be good no matter what the outcome is. So that's why I love this tool. The strategic part, maybe you're referring to that mostly, because it's
maybe I am.
It's, you know, it's just something. It's very logic focused. And it's good. I need that sometimes. My clients definitely need that. But I get it. You know, many times when it comes to strategy, what I feel sometimes it takes away people's ability to think for themselves. Because
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, because it's like it's ABC. You know, that's what you're doing. The thing is, when I talk, maybe the word strategy is the wrong word in there, but when I talk about a strategy, it's something very simple. Essentially, most of the time, it's just a bunch of principles. And then you apply your own thinking on top of these principles, and then you have these strategies that are completely customized to every person who uses it. You know, it's like a story. You know, when you put out the story out there, the story can resonate with 1 million people, but every person takes out something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what tests this as a being good tool, is that people can apply their own unique situation and even values to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
I hear what
Exactly.
you're saying. Yeah, I don't mean to beat up on it
No, it's all
as a
good.
whole. You know what's funny is I've done something very similar when I wrote my book Fast and Hot. One of the first things I talk about in the early chapters how to connect with people, because that's the beginning of the process. How to create a better life in business. That's the subtitle of the book. But to get started, you have to connect with people and you have to find the right opportunity. And the beginning of the process is if you can't find the situation to connect with someone, then you're going to need to be able to create it. And how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And what I did to develop that process, for lack of a better word, is I just looked at the way I've been doing it my whole life. And what I learned from watching my father back in flea markets when I was a kid and things like that. And I realized that, you know what, there is a process to this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it begins with having that moment where there's a connection, and that connection needs to be recognized by both parties. And if the connection doesn't exist or the circumstances aren't available, you can actually create that.
Mm-hmm.
And I describe that in the book. But it's very much sort of a 1, 2, 3
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
process to identify with.
Yeah. I know that you're not a big fan of processes. I very much know that. Um, and
Yet I
there's a
have
few
my
points.
own.
Yeah. We sort of all do. It's
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of rigid processes. I hate rigid processes. I love dynamic things that can be changed, that are completely individual and things like
Mm.
that. And one of the big differences that I see when people try to connect with powerful people, if it works or if it doesn't work, is something that has nothing to do with the process actually. And it's all about, if you want to connect with super people, you have to become super you first.
Oh, yeah.
And this has nothing to do with, your achievements of the past or what you're even doing right now. It has everything to do with making the decision to become super you. And that's
Mm.
something that I talked about with my coach a while ago. This is so powerful because many, many times what I see when people want to connect with powerful people, or any kind of people most of the time, um, and they did not make that decision to become super them. They're in a needy place. They want to take
Yeah.
something from the super people.
Yes.
They're in a taking mindset. It's just about them. They're coming from a selfish place. So many, many
Yeah.
times that's a big issue, but that's the starting point. The starting point is the big issue. And for them, a framework like that works, but the only thing that works for them is the strategies. Many times they don't get the principles. They don't get the pillars, what they're built on. They don't understand where this
Yeah.
whole philosophy is coming from.
Yeah. Everybody
And
wants a shortcut.
exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
then what I see, when essentially somebody uses that framework, who stepped into the super person they, are
Hmm.
becoming, um, we're I very much believe we're not always great. We no matter who we are, we always have our weak moments.
Of
Sometimes we're
course.
brain dead and sometimes we're genius.
Yeah.
And most of the time we're somewhere in between there. And and I feel this framework for the people who made the decision to become super people, become super them, is many times it's just a reminder when we slip back, into,
Mm.
just a little tiny reminder to get back on track to making these connections in from the right place. It's not in the
Yeah.
right way, but it's from the right place of these
Hmm.
core principles.
Yeah. I totally concur with that. I see it as sort of simply, who do you want to be? And you can just make it totally contextual. Like, all right, who do you want to be in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And is the decision you're making congruent with that? And I think by taking, that moment, that pause, as instead of just, reactionary, or as you just astutely pointed out, instead of acting from a place of need, And then that may be very real. Like you may need it, and you may need your big break, and you may need, lots of things. You're going to need to pay your rent or whatever it is. But if you're coming from that place, then by default, you don't have the thing that's going to attract the other person and make them want to help you in the first place.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So, using the language you did, to connect with the super you, the part of you, to be coming from that place first is critical.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have to remind yourself sometimes and say, hey, am I? And I think it's a gut check.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said, you should mention it, people, it's real. People need things. Oh, of course, I feel we all need things, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's always about, I don't like the term getting, but it's always about receiving as well. It's about giving and receiving. Yes, it's not about getting. It's not about giving and taking. It's about giving and receiving. And
yeah,
the thing is, the situation many times people are in. At the end of the day, it's a mindset thing. You can come from a place of need, no matter where you are. No matter how successful you are or whatever you've achieved. You can always be in a place of neediness, no matter what. But what makes the difference is the mindset, because no matter how needy you are, no matter how much, how many challenges you have right now, whatever happens in life, you can always decide to step into the persona of the creator. I feel that's a really good term, because I believe we're all creators when we're born, and then that kind of gets driven out of us. But when we step into that, in a place of creation, there's something in that, when you can show up and say, and this is what I'm building, and this is what I'm creating, instead of saying, and this is what I'm doing. If you can say, this is what I'm creating, this is a huge difference. And many times I see that step going from, this is what I'm doing, this is my situation, all the external things that are influencing me. This is, instead of talking about that, coming from a place of, no matter what this is what I'm creating right now. It's like going to the question, some networking events. It's like, so, tell me what you do right now and tell me what you would like to be doing.
Yeah. That's such a disconnect. What I hear you describing is the difference between belief and not belief. To me, the difference between talking about what you're doing and what you're creating is not truly believing in yourself. Because when you believe in something, you are creating it. And the energy about it is different, and the presentation is different. Everything is different. But if you're doing something, then there's need associated with it. But if you're creating something, it's more like, hey, I'm making this happen. Do you want to be part of it?
Yeah.
And that's a very different proposition.
Yeah.
And I think that in our culture, we've adopted, like, even the language is so important, because it reflects the paradigm. It reflects this neediness. So when everyone walks around and says, hey, so what do you do? We're automatically starting from the paradigm, from the place of do, as opposed to believe.
Yeah.
And so it's already, right out of the gate, missing all of the energy. We're not talking about what we believe in. We're not talking about the why.
Yeah.
2 people yesterday, just yesterday alone, 2 people here came up to me and told me about projects that they're doing. And the approach was, hey, do you know about this project I'm doing? And it was basically an ask, will you invest in it? And they're both land deals, development deals up in the mountains here, and it's beautiful. I mean, Costa Rica is fantastic, and it almost doesn't matter where you go. It's beautiful. So, I hear 2 pitches for the same, totally different places, totally different ideas, but ultimately the same kind of thing. And they're guys that I like, but they're coming at it from, I'm doing this project, and it's all need. I need investors, and I need this, and I need that. And whether I'm interested or not, I'm already put off. But if either one of those guys, because I like them both, had come to me and said, holy shit, I'm making this incredible thing, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that, I would have had a totally different response.
Because it's a very different place. It's instead of I'm trying to make this connection in the entrepreneur investor world, because that's kind of
Right.
where I see the puzzle easier. But it's like when you say, I'm launching this thing and I need investors. Do you want to invest? Or it's I'm creating this incredible thing and I'm gonna make it no matter what. Do you want to be on
Right.
board?
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
difference
That's exactly.
is huge.
So me as the potential investor immediately has a flag up. I'm like, I'm not going to invest with that guy because he needs my money too much.
Yeah.
I want to invest in the guy who's going to make it no matter what.
That interesting thing with that is it also determines the probability of success.
Of course
Because
it does.
if somebody is determined, not just determined, but we're talking about belief, believe in faith. If somebody has total faith in, they're going to create this no matter what. I mean, I'd rather invest in that person than a person who said, I'm building this, I need
Always.
investors.
Always. Never invest in the idea, you invest in the people.
Yes.
That any angel knows that.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like rule 101. You're buying the team.
Exactly.
And if the team ain't right, it doesn't matter how brilliant the idea is.
Yeah. I was at a startup convention a few months ago, and they did some pictures, and most of them were totally boring. And then one of the guys walked up there, and the very first sentence he said was, "We're changing the way people interact with art." And I have no idea anymore what exactly the thing is, but I still remember that one sentence, and I still remember him. And that's as soon as he said that, I was there. I was awake. I wanted to hear what he's building, because now he's no longer saying we are a company who provides services or who creates products. And no, it says we are creating that change. Now it's again about that creation part.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
And to go back to this idea about connecting with powerful people, I think we get fixated on our need. And we forget that sometimes the place being fixated on the end isn't necessarily the best way to go through life, because it blocks out a lot of other opportunity. And what happens, what's happened in my life over and over again is because I've believed in something so much, I've met other people who believe in me. And I end up doing things with them that had nothing to do with what I wanted from them in the first place, or what I thought I was going to do in the first place.
Yes.
But connecting with powerful people is about this. It's about that piece. I can't tell you how many times where I've pitched something or talked about something I believe in and been offered other opportunities, whether from jobs to investments to anything in the world. Like, so many crazy things in my life and doors have opened up that some of my friends think are impossible, but it happens because of the belief. It happens because the person I'm talking to wants to work with me or wants to do something with me. And it really didn't matter whether it was, as you say, the project itself wasn't the issue.
Yeah. I would even add one more thing to that. It happens because of the belief, and also because you put it out there. You have to believe in it first, and then you put it out there with that energy of the belief, and then things show up, and you just say, I'm creating this no matter what. And you always know something exactly. You put something out, you essentially comes back to creation. You create something. Yeah. If it's a sentence, you created that sentence. If it's a venture, it doesn't matter. Creation is everything you come up with, essentially. And I think that's an essential part there.
I agree wholeheartedly. We have to create. There's no better word for it. And whatever you choose to put out there, it almost doesn't matter what format it is, and ultimately it may not really matter what it is, as long as you're making a contribution first. I actually think that's the whole purpose, of being here in the first place, is to manifest, is to create our own experience. And whether it's this form or that form, or a good thing or a bad thing, it's not about judgment. It's just you have to do something. Well, you don't have to, but that's the opportunity. And that's what creates these other opportunities. Like they beget each other.
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation with Jim Belushi. I was apprenticing as a director on my first feature film, like my first long form anything. It was a big deal. And we were in Vancouver, and I'll spare you the whole backstory, but I was leaving and I went to say goodbye, and we're standing in the trailer. I was sitting on the floor actually. And I said something like, well, I want to be able to stay in touch with you. I was needing, and I was reaching out to him saying, okay, how do I hold on to you? Because you're a movie star and you're somebody that I can, hopefully is going to help me. And he knew exactly what was going on. And I really appreciate him for this. He said, Perry, go home and make something and parlay that into your next opportunity.
Yes. Yes.
He didn't say, here's my home phone number, call me anytime.
Yeah. This is so big. I feel like, sometimes I feel like we're off topic, but I feel like we're totally not off topic with the creation part, because
No.
every single time I hear somebody or I meet somebody who is just sort of in their situation and influenced by the outside and sort of, walking the beaten path, doesn't matter if it's an employee or an entrepreneur. There's entrepreneurs out there who just walk the beaten path. But every time I meet somebody who is just that victim of influence, of outside influence, it's just totally boring and it's not inspiring, not a single bit.
Yeah.
But then when somebody shows up and says, this is what I've built, or this is what I'm creating, I'm excited, I'm inspired, I want to learn more. And I think this goes, with us as humans. It has nothing to do, with me or you or Richard Branson, or, it doesn't matter who you want to connect with. I always feel when you come from this place of creation and at the same time add the creation part to, the vision. And for me, the vision is so vision is just a word, but for me, vision means, what do you want the world to look like after you were here? So what will the world look like after we're here? Like that's the world. That's what the world looks like today. That's what the world looks like tomorrow. And when you create, when you bring that creation piece into that context, it's just so inspiring to listen to. It's just so inspiring because people want to know more. And many times something comes up when people say, I want to connect with powerful people, but I don't feel I have anything to offer.
Right.
Well, interestingly, everybody has something to offer, which is a perspective and ideas and a different way of seeing things and whatever, they're passionate about, whatever they love talking about. And many times this is huge. I talked to somebody yesterday about this topic as well. And he was just like, recently somebody connected with me because she wanted to write a poem about something I've created. And it had nothing to do with his business. But she just came from a place of, I'm doing this because it's making the world a better place, because essentially, we're doing something for the greater good. He said, sure, no problem.
Yeah, I do think that creation is the key, and being honest with yourself about what the connection is for. Again, why do you want that, and why do you believe you need it? Because as we're saying, when you do create and you do put things out in the world, it does draw people in, and it does create that opportunity.
Yeah. I think, something interesting that just comes up is the push versus pull. Something that just came to my mind. It's, same thing in marketing, push marketing or pull marketing. It's the same thing in connecting with people. Do you pull connecting with people or push connecting with people? Because if you push, you just go out there and try to make those connections because you need something. But if you start from a place of pull, then you once again come from that creation part, and you step into this personality of super you, and you attract the right kinds of people in your network, and people fall into your lap. I mean, that's what's happening to me every single day, because I show up as the person, as who I really am, and if I don't, then nothing works.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, to take that one step further, asking the question of who do you want to be. I mean, if you're spending your time and your energy and your effort on that push, then that's what you do. You know, Seth Godin said, you know, the age of search is over, or something to that effect. Like, it's about being sought. You want people to seek you. Do you really want your business to be push, 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 push all the time, and then you hope to get the right person? Or do you want people to vet themselves out or come to you in the first place? You know, like, let them choose that they want you.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a better quality of person. Now, it depends on your business. If you're an internet marketer and your business is, you know, about just how many people can you pour into the funnel, and then conversions and churn and all the rest of it, so be it. That's your business. But be clear that that's your business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what you're in it for. I think of it in terms of sort of process versus results. Are you in it for the process, or are you in it for the result?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's a good example, because, you know, many times when I hear people talk about their business, it's really boring, because they start from a place of process and not from a place of result. And result, in my opinion, is always about change. Or it doesn't always have to be about change, but I always feel change is at least the most inspiring thing to me. When somebody, you know, let's talk about the internet marketer. You know, they can say, you know, we optimize sales funnels and do that and this and this and this. Or they can say, you know, just making this up, but they can say, we changed the way people buy products. You know, and now they're, you know, and now it's different. It's a different place to come from. It's no longer about the process, but it's about the change, which essentially is a result.
But unfortunately, to a great extent, internet marketing is about process.
It is.
I mean, the whole thing is subordinated to the mechanism, and at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. It's bits and bytes, and it's how much can you throw in the top. It's not the only way to do it, but for the most part, it is. And I constantly find myself bumping up, not against, but, you know, with people who are on that journey and in that process part of it, and saying, well, you know, I'm just not getting anywhere, or how do I make my business more effective, and what more, you know, what other techniques can I implement or learn, and all that stuff. And all I want to say to them is, what are you actually offering? And are you offering it? And are you putting that out there? And are you doing that piece of the work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or are you worried about attracting an audience first? You know, because at that point, then you're in the business of attracting an audience, and you can sell them anything.
Yeah. Yeah, once again, we're in the process,
Yeah, I mean, what's super cool to me about the way you and I interact is, to a great extent, I mean, we have a topic for our discussion, but we're really showing up with what we have.
Totally.
You know, now, in the moment.
Totally.
You know, and I love that. I love the opportunity to work with what's there and to consider what's in front of us right now. And
yeah, I mean, totally, because I very much do believe that anything is not about, you know, methods or even strategies. You know, they're just little pieces in a puzzle that come in at the end. But it's like having a ball. There's like the story of the teacher that in the classroom that has this ball, and he puts in stones of different sizes, and essentially he first starts, you know, with sand, pours in sand, then he pours in little stones, and then at the end, you know, the big stones, there's no more space. And then he starts the other way, and then everything fits in. And the big stones, in my thing, I want to try to picture here, the big stones is wisdom. You know, it comes down to wisdom. What we're talking about when we talk about from a place of presence is wisdom. We talk about stories, and stories are wisdom. You know, pieces of the puzzle that are the biggest ones, and then we can build our strategies and methods and approaches and all that stuff on top of that. But it's always about the core piece is always the wisdom.
I agree with you, but I certainly believe that isn't for everybody. And just as an aside, you know, I don't want to think about your big stones too much, but there are people in the world who are the sand
Mm-hmm.
as well. And and I think there's some people who are happier to not have to think about this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and who really truly don't, how do I want to put this? They don't need even to have the big idea.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be able to. They just want to be able to exist.
Totally. Absolutely.
And maybe we're not talking to those people, or maybe that's not important. They're not looking to connect with powerful people. They're not necessarily looking to advance themselves or their careers. And I think I'm broaching a whole other topic, but I do feel like it's just worth saying that none of this should be judged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I totally get it. I mean, everybody's needed. Every
Yeah,
human on earth is a piece of the greater puzzle. And whatever they do is whatever they do, and whatever is
yeah.
is great. Um,
So maybe
yeah.
we're not speaking to them in the first place. I just somehow or another I felt like that needed to be represented in the conversation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I just want to quickly go back to one point. Is when we're talking about attracting the right people.
Yeah.
Um, I talked to a guy. I'm going to talk to him again tomorrow. Who's built an online language school. Pretty
Mm.
successful, but it took him years to get it off the ground. Um, and then about a year or 6 months or 8 months ago, they started a platform for startups, which is essentially a global startup map, which is an ecosystem where the entire startup world can connect, from investors to startups to incubators to co-working spaces, like the entire map.
Okay.
And it was all about essentially connecting the pieces,
Yeah.
connecting the disconnected pieces. And within about 6 months, they had, I think, 70,000 people signed up.
Wow.
And he told me, we didn't do anything. We didn't. I mean, we just put it out there. We talked about why we're doing this, and then the press, showed up,
Mhm.
and people like Guy Kawasaki, they tweeted about this,
Right.
and
But
there's
they
just a
did do
huge.
something.
They
They
did
put
do
it out
something,
there.
yes. They put it out there, but they didn't try to push it. They didn't
Yeah.
try to, like with the language school. He compares it always to the language school. It took me years for
Mm-hmm.
that to take off, because nobody cared about it. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was not it was not necessarily something for the greater good. Most probably because he just like phrased it and communicated
Mm-hmm.
the vision in the wrong way, or maybe didn't have a vision. And this was really all about, we're not in it for the money. We don't care about the money. What we care
Yeah.
about is creating a resource for the whole ecosystem to come together, connect, and collaborate. And that's what
Yeah.
they put out there, and that's what got so much traction so quickly. And
Cool.
when I talk about attracting the right people, once again, it's the same thing. It's I also think it comes down to what you care about, because he probably didn't care so much about the language school. It's more of a means to make some money.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is his baby. It's something that
Right.
really, really resonates with him, and that's why he's able to communicate the vision so clearly.
Yeah, and it's the why again. I mean, even with the language piece, you don't learn language for the sake of learning language. You learn it because you want to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't speak to, the idea of learning a language. You speak to the idea of what you can do with it,
Mm-hmm.
the why.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
being able to, impress your date in Japanese in Tokyo is cool.
Yes.
There's a real reason for it. Or being able to, talk to someone in their own culture, in their own language, shows an amount of respect that you could never achieve
Yeah.
any other way. Reading a book in the native language it was written allows you to experience the idea in a way that no translator is ever truly going to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are powerful reasons to want to learn a language.
Exactly. And now you're just talking about the why, and that really resonates.
Exactly. And connecting people for, to be able to achieve something, to be able to share resources and ideas. And that makes the language important. That makes the platform critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's all about coming back to that. But I love your example and how it really clearly illustrates that, it starts with putting something out and giving people an opportunity to have their own experience with it, allowing people, and you spoke to this earlier, allowing people to not only have their own experience, but articulate it and share it in their way, and not having to have it, like, here it's all packaged up and this is how you talk about it and this is how you proliferate whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's another example is, my TEDx talk that I did recently.
Oh yeah, of course. Congrats, that was
thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the video. But it was a great example because I got connected, of course, to the organizer of the event, but he had never heard of me. He had no idea who I am. But then he looked at the things that I created. He looked at the things that I write about. He looked at the videos that I put out there, and I had some regular chats with him. But we never talked about a topic that I will talk about. He never heard me speak publicly ever before. Cool. But then I was the first person he reached out to and said, "Would you like to be a speaker at TEDx?" And we had no topic and nothing, and I didn't even know what the theme was or anything. But of course, I said yes. But it was to me it feels so weird essentially that he reached out to me and there was like nothing clear, but there was a certain level of trust because I didn't the reason why I wanted that TEDx talk is not for selfish reasons. Of course, a big part of it is because I always wanted to do it. But more importantly, it's about spreading a message that I feel people need to hear.
Yeah.
And I love that you have no opportunity to promote yourself in there. I just love that because then you don't have any opportunity to promote yourself. And then you just have to talk about something that is really important to you. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And just that, that connection always surprises me when I look back at that. It's just like coming from that place because I was showing up and I attracted somehow that connection and then it happened. But there was no agenda or we didn't have anything planned or something like that.
But you just said it. I mean, look, that's the whole premise from the get-go. The idea is that you have something to share that's going to, help people, right? That's what the TED speaks. Yeah, all of the different pieces of it are based on being able to share information that's going to help other people. It's not that so and so is famous already.
Yeah.
It's about the idea.
Yeah.
I would say, pretty much first and foremost.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's by the way, it's actually a good measurement. Just maybe to close today's conversation. But it's actually, I think it's a good place to look at. I love TEDx. I love the videos. I love the talks. And then there's some that really resonate, and then there's some that don't.
Yeah.
And I always ask myself why about everything. But that's another thing. I ask myself why does that not resonate? And why does that resonate? Many times it's because something is, I know that term is overused, but something is innovative. Something is, an idea worth spreading. I think that's a really good way to describe it. Because what is an idea worth spreading? It's not something people, it doesn't have to be something completely new. But it can be done in a new way, from a new perspective, from a different point of view, with a different story behind it. And the idea can be, it can be toilet paper. And it has been toilet paper. It's something that's been talked about on TED. But it comes from a completely different perspective, with different vision, different story behind it. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. If the idea is worth spreading, then, there's a reason to make that happen. And if you have something you truly believe in that you want to talk about and put out in the world, then that's the reason why someone's going to connect with you. Yeah. And this is very much the same thing.
Yeah. Good.
What are you going to do with that tool of yours?
I'm probably going to use that in my work with my clients a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's not something new. All I did is I took all the work that I do with my clients in a 3 month program, and I
Mm.
just try to put it into one thing.
Yeah.
Because I love that one thing that you can just look at and it explains everything, and
Yeah.
that's what I tried to do, and that's what I came up with. So I'm probably gonna
Mm.
put it out there somewhere on the website as well, because it really neatly explains the whole thing in
Hmm.
one puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that idea. Yeah, if you decide to share it, I think that would be great.
totally. I
Yeah, yeah.
will. Great.
Maybe I'll share the chapter on how to create a connection.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we should do that. Well, I'll put it on my blog, and when you
And I put mine on my blog.
perfect.
Awesome. Good. That was an awesome conversation. Thank you, Perry.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. Cool. Well, yeah, you're Daniel Jordy, and people can find you where?
People can find me on jordico.com. JORDICO.com. Very simple. What about you? You're
Awesome.
Perry Gladstone. People can find you?
Yeah, same thing. PerryGladstone.com. Easy
Good.
peasy. Yeah.
Cool. All
I'm
right.
glad we get to do this.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we think about our next topic.
Totally. All right. See you next